There's another guy whose name slips my mind. There's a famous silent film called Greed that was based on a novel.
Yeah. It's by the famous director. I'm forgetting his name.
Yeah.
Won something. Some
Let's
Greed,
see.
right?
Let's see. Greed film. Let me just look it up here. But I know that Greed film, Eric von Stroheim directed
Eric
it.
von Stroheim. Yeah.
And it was based upon, I know, Frank Norris novel, McTeague. McTeague and Frank Norris, he's not well known here, even in America. Frank Norris was a very underrated writer. Jack London in that era was very underrated. Stephen Crane as a writer.
Well, just 1 second. I'm taking some. I'll take the note. Frank
Norris. Norris.
All right.
Stephen Crane, Crane, Stephen with a PH. And then Jack London. Jack London is probably an example of someone who has been, he's been called a racist and an imperialist and whatnot. But I mean, all of these guys would have these assumptions. Today, someone watching us talking in 120 years might look back and say, boy, that Dan and Rishi, boy, a couple of ignorant bastards back then. You can't help that. You have to look at the positive and what they go beyond. I mean, it's like here in America, a lot of people will say, well, that the founding fathers were racist. That Abe Lincoln was a racist. Well, of course, he was born in 1819 or 17, whenever the hell he was born. But in spite of being a racist, he still did the right thing, even though he knew it was going to cost, hundreds of thousands of lives. And I say to these people, yes, he was ignorant, but he was a man of his time. What have you done in your life that's going to look good in 150 years? Yeah. He was more ignorant, but he couldn't help it. If Lincoln had been born in 1965 like me, I can virtually guarantee you that you can look from his writing and his thoughts and his deeds. He was a smart man. He would have looked in the science books and he would have said, boy, I was taught really stupidly. Most people are the same. If you look, but people don't get it. They get off on, I'm this little shit now, a troll online. So I'm going to say that this person was a terrible person, that person was a terrible person. It's like when I've talked about Genghis Khan. You can't compare Genghis Khan, even though he killed tens of millions of people, with someone like, say, Attila the Hun. Attila the Hun was just a killer. He was like the Al Capone of Eastern Europe, the Al Capone of the Roman Empire. But Genghis Khan, if you actually look into it, he killed a lot of people. So did Alexander the Great. So did Cyrus the Great. Most of the people who were leaders of nations then were genocidal people. They wanted to get rid of the others. But Genghis Khan was the first guy and the first major empire that had religious tolerance. He reformed things. He did things for the average Mongol or the average Chinese peasant that made their lives better. Basically, unlike someone like Attila the Hun or Alexander the Great, he said, if you accept us and don't fight us, we won't harm you. And Genghis Khan and most of the Khans and Kublai Khan did the same thing. But if you went against them, they would annihilate you. So, and I'm not saying, now you can say, yes, he's still a mass murderer. But Genghis Khan is someone who is different than Attila the Hun. He's also different than the Hitlers and the Stalins and the Mao Zedongs. But people don't want to see nuances. It's easy to lump things together.
Yeah. So coming back to topic, so why do you think, I want your perspective, why do you think a writer like Frank Norris and Stephen Crane is not as well known as Jack London or Joseph Conrad? Why? Like, is it luck? Is it what?
Well, so you said Crane and London. With Jack London, it's a very simple thing. Jack London was enormously influential in the first half of the 20th century. Call of the Wild, White Fang are books that in America were taught almost religiously but then once the 1960s came on, he became sort of America's equivalent of Rudyard Kipling. He became the source of the white man's burden and whatnot. And on top of that, he also plagiarized some stuff from lesser writers. He admitted that he plagiarized, but this now has become a mark against him as well. So the fact that a lot of his writing has that, well, I am the great conquering white man, and also that he admitted to plagiarism, has made him persona non grata. Well, throughout the stuff that he admittedly plagiarized, and just take a look at the individual stuff. This is a guy, that wrote better science fiction novels than a lot of more famous science fiction writers. Off the top of my head, I can't remember, but this was a guy who just didn't write about wolves and cold weather. He wrote over an immense amount of subjects. As for Stephen Crane, like what's his name, London, was well known in the early half of the 20th century in the U.S. Basically because of the Red Badge of Courage. In more recent, the last 50 years, his quote-unquote poetry, which he called his lines, have become fairly well known within the sort of intellectual academic poetry circles. But he didn't have the output that London did. And I think simply probably Red Badge of Courage was one of those things that were just shoved down people's throats, that people are now,